Let me tell you something that could rewire your destiny if you truly absorb it. It's not over until you win. That's not a phrase. That's not a motivational quote to paste on your wall. That is a decision, a mindset, a life command. Because the truth is, most people quit way before the end. They stop at the first no. They walk away after one failure. They throw in the towel because they didn't see results in 30 days. Those people never win. Not because they didn't have what it takes, but because they didn't stick around long enough to see what was possible. Winners stay in the game, period. Not because they're lucky, not because they're special, because they've made an unshakable commitment to themselves. I don't care how long it takes, how many times I get knocked down, how much it hurts. I will not stop until I win. That mindset alone separates the 1% from the rest. It's not just about grit. It's about clarity. You must understand why you're fighting, because when your purpose is weak, your will collapses under pressure. When your purpose is strong, when your mission is tied to something greater than your comfort, you tap into a version of yourself that is unstoppable. And yes, the road will test you. It will mock you. It will strip you down. Those are the moments where your identity is forged. Most people avoid pain, but those who rise, those who break through, they lean into it. They understand that adversity doesn't block the path. It is the path. So don't fear failing, fear staying down, fear regret. Fear becoming a version of yourself that surrendered to doubt. See, the magic is not in never falling, it's in failing forward. Every time you get back up, you're collecting strength, collecting wisdom, collecting momentum. The most powerful thing about momentum, once you generate it, it compounds. One small win becomes 2. 2 becomes 10. Suddenly, you're no longer chasing victory, you embody it. But here's the key, you don't need to be perfect. You need to be persistent. The days you don't feel like showing up, that's the real test, because it's easy to act when everything's going well. But when life punches you in the gut, when you're tired, broke, doubting, defeated, that's when the winners are made. You want to win. Then commit now that your future self will never have to recover from the decisions you refuse to make today. Commit that no excuse will have more power than your desire to grow. That no pain will speak louder than your purpose. And the beautiful part is this: you define your victory. You measure your growth. No one gets to tell you what success looks like for you. Maybe it's building a legacy. Maybe it's proving to yourself that you're more than what they said you were. Whatever it is, anchor into it and don't stop until you own it. This is not motivation. This is strategy. You reprogram your identity with your actions, your choices, your discipline. And when you tell yourself, it's not over until I win, what you're really saying is, I'm not leaving my life up to chance. I'm taking it back. So the next time life tries to shut you down, you stare it right in the face and say, you can slow me, you can challenge me, but you will not defeat me. It's not over until I win. Everything begins in the mind. Every breakthrough, every achievement, every extraordinary outcome you see in the world was once just a thought, a belief someone chose to hold on to when no one else could see the vision. That's where real change starts. Before there's a result in your bank account, in your body, your business, there's a belief, a relentless, almost unreasonable belief that says, I will find a way. I will figure it out. It's not over until I win. That belief is not something you're born with. It's built. It's forged in the fire of repeated challenge and choice. See, most people operate from their circumstances. They look at their environment, their resources, their past failures, and they let that dictate what they believe is possible. Winners do the exact opposite. They choose their belief first, and then they bend reality to meet it. They're not reacting to life. They're creating it. Because when you truly believe that something is yours to claim, your brain, your body, your energy, all of it aligns with that belief. You activate something deeper in your nervous system that literally starts seeking, tracking, scanning for ways to make that outcome real. Let's be clear. This isn't about wishful thinking. This is not just about saying affirmations in the mirror and hoping something changes. That's surface level. I'm talking about a belief that lives in your bones. One that says, even if I failed 10 times, I'm still in the game. Even if no one believes in me, I still do. Even if everything around me says stop, I keep going. That's relentless belief. That's the fuel that pushes people through the nights they don't sleep, the days they're overwhelmed, where quitting feels easier than holding on. Without it, you will fold the moment resistance shows up. But with it, you become dangerous to doubt. You become the kind of person who becomes unstoppable. Not because life got easier, because you got stronger. Let me ask you something. What do you believe about your potential when no one's watching? What do you say to yourself when you fail, when you're rejected, when the plan falls apart? Because that internal dialogue, those unconscious beliefs, that is what's shaping your life more than anything else. And if that dialogue is weak, if your belief system is built on fear, scarcity, or comparison, then everything you build will be fragile. When that belief is rooted in certainty, not arrogance, but deep certainty, you can walk through hell and come out stronger on the other side. You must understand belief is not just mental, it is biological. When you shift your belief, you change your emotional state. You change your actions. You literally rewire the way your brain fires. You activate different emotional pathways, different hormones, different behaviors. That shift, that new energy is what starts attracting new results. It's not magic, it's mechanics, but it starts inside. The reason people give up early is not because they lack talent. It's because they lack belief. They haven't trained that muscle. They haven't built that certainty. And when life throws pressure at them, and it will, they collapse under it. But when you condition belief the way you condition your body, you become resilient. You become resourceful. You stop waiting for the right time, the right conditions, or someone else to believe in you. You become the source of your own momentum. That's the power of relentless belief. It gives you leverage. It gives you endurance. It gives you a weapon when life is at war with your dreams. Because belief isn't passive, it fights for you. It shows up when you're exhausted. It lifts you when your motivation dies. And it reminds you that the game isn't over, not until you win. That's why belief must become your foundation, not hope. Not hype, but belief that's practiced, strengthened, reinforced daily. Because if you don't install that belief intentionally, the world will install doubt by default. Once doubt takes root, every decision you make becomes smaller. Every dream becomes more distant. But if you choose belief, real belief, then there's nothing that can stand in your way for long. So don't just chase goals, build belief. Because once your belief becomes unshakable, your future becomes inevitable. We live in a world obsessed with results. Everything is measured in likes, followers, views, or trophies. And while results matter, the truth is, they're not the whole story. They never are. Because what builds real success, the kind of success that doesn't collapse when pressure comes, isn't the outcome. It's the resilience behind the outcome. It's the bounce back. It's what you do when the plan fails, when the door is closed, when life hands you a version of reality you didn't ask for. That's where the foundation is formed. Resilience is the invisible thread woven through every champion's story. Most people never see it because they're too focused on the highlight reel, too caught up in how fast someone succeeded or how perfect it looks from the outside. They forget to look deeper. You must understand is that true resilience is not a talent. It's not genetic. It's trained. It's chosen. You develop it by going through hard things and refusing to be broken by them. Every time you get knocked down and choose to rise again, you're teaching your nervous system that quitting isn't an option. That's how mental toughness is formed, and that toughness, that's what produces results over time. Because results don't come in a straight line. They're jagged, messy, chaotic. If you're only in love with the destination, if you don't fall in love with your ability to endure, then the first failure will knock you off course. And you'll start to question if you were ever good enough to begin with. People ask, how do I get what I want? And the better question is, how long are you willing to go without it while still showing up like it's already yours? That's the test. That's the mindset of someone who is building something real. Because you're not just chasing a result, you're becoming someone different in the process. Someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who doesn't need external validation to keep moving forward. Resilience teaches you how to lead yourself, even when everything feels dark, even when the momentum is gone, even when you feel alone in the fight. You need to stop thinking setbacks are signals to stop. They're not. They're checkpoints. They're lessons. If you have the emotional intelligence to extract meaning from the pain, you will always walk away stronger than you started. But that requires discipline because pain has a way of making you doubt everything. And that's when most people quit because they can't go further, but because they've convinced themselves it's not worth it anymore. They get addicted to comfort, to predictability, to ease. And they forget that greatness only grows in discomfort. That resilience is like a muscle. If it's never tested, it never strengthens. You want to be successful, you better get real comfortable with pressure. You better get used to failing forward. Because the ones who rise aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who can carry failure on their back and keep walking. They know the result will come, not because they hope it will, because they're committed to showing up no matter how many times they fall. And that's the kind of person who doesn't need perfect conditions to thrive. They create momentum in chaos. They lead through uncertainty, even when motivation disappears, because they've trained themselves to value the long game more than the immediate reward. If your identity is tied to results, your confidence will be fragile because results fluctuate. When your identity is rooted in resilience, when no matter what happens, you will adapt, adjust, and come back stronger, then no setback can destroy you. You become untouchable in a way that scares mediocrity. That's when the real shift happens. When you stop chasing outcomes and start mastering the process. When you stop needing wins to feel worthy and start realizing the act of showing up is the win itself. That's how legacies are built. Not through shortcuts, not through overnight success, but through consistent, painful, disciplined resilience. The kind that doesn't always look impressive to others, but always pays off in the long run. So if you're in the middle of the storm right now, if the results aren't showing up, if you're questioning if it's even worth it, remember this resilience is building something inside you that results never could. And if you keep going, if you keep trusting the process, the results will eventually have no choice but to follow your lead. You can have talent, you can have intelligence, you can have skills, strategies, mentors, and all the resources in the world. But if you lack purpose, you will eventually quit because talent won't carry you when the pain shows up. Intelligence won't matter when life gets heavy and you're alone with your thoughts at 2 a.m. wondering if you're even on the right path. Strategy won't save you when you're emotionally empty. Keeps you alive in the game, what keeps you moving when everything else says stop is purpose. That's the fuel, that's the engine. That's the core of perseverance. And without it, you're just a leaf in the wind, drifting, chasing temporary highs, never anchored, never certain, always ready to walk away the moment it gets inconvenient. Purpose gives you something bigger than comfort. It gives you something deeper than goals. See, goals are important, but goals can change. They're external. You hit one, then you want the next one. But purpose is internal. Purpose is who you become in the process of chasing something meaningful. And when you're connected to that, quitting becomes almost impossible. Not because you're superhuman, but because your soul is invested. You're not just working for money, for applause, for status. You're working because something in you refuses to settle. Something in you knows that you were meant to build, to grow, to rise, and to give back while doing it. That level of emotional connection to what you're doing is what ignites a fire that excuses, distractions, or obstacles simply can't put out. The reason most people break isn't because they're weak. It's because they're disconnected. They're grinding for something they don't even care about. They're waking up every day chasing things that don't feed them spiritually. When the challenges come, and they always do, they don't have a deeper reason to keep going. So they give up, they settle, they compromise. But when you're locked into a purpose that's bigger than you, you gain access to a different level of energy. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop negotiating with your feelings. You just move, you act, because the mission is too important. You can't afford to stop. You owe it to something greater than yourself. That's why purpose isn't just a feel-good concept. It's a requirement. If you want to last, if you want to endure, if you want to keep growing even when life throws curveballs, you must connect to your why on a deep, emotional level. Just intellectually, not just writing it in a journal. You've got to feel it in your gut. You've got to see it when you close your eyes. You've got to let it live in your body. So when everything else fades, when progress slows down, fear rises when critics show up, you're still grounded in the one thing that never changes your reason for starting. And here's the truth. Purpose doesn't always show up overnight. Sometimes you have to move before it's clear. Sometimes you find your purpose in the process of refusing to quit. But it begins with a decision to stop living on the surface and start asking deeper questions. What do I truly care about? What kind of impact do I want to make? Who do I want to become? You start answering those, your actions begin to align with your soul. And suddenly you're not just working, you're building something sacred. People think purpose is optional. It's not. Purpose is what turns survival into leadership. It's what transforms pain into power. When you're locked into purpose, your struggles become your story, your mess becomes your message, and your setbacks become setups for something far greater than you ever imagined. That's when perseverance becomes natural, but natural, because you're no longer pushing, you're pulled. And that pull is what creates consistency. That pull is what creates power. That pull is what makes you impossible to break. If you're tired, if you're lost, if you're doubting whether this is worth it, don't just look at the path, look at the purpose. Ask yourself, why did I start? What am I fighting for? Because once you reconnect to that, the fire comes back. The strength returns, the fog begins to clear, and you realize this truth: when your purpose is unshakable, your perseverance becomes unstoppable. Failure is not the enemy. It never was. The real danger is what you do with failure, how you label it, how you internalize it, how you let it define you or destroy you. Most people were never taught how to fail. They were taught how to avoid failure, how to fear it, how to pretend it's something shameful. But the truth is, failure is feedback. It's not a full stop. It's not a life sentence. It's information. And if you learn how to fail forward, if you learn to use every setback as a step, you'll build a life that most people only dream about, because you'll be doing what most people are too afraid to attempt. When you fail forward, you don't retreat into fear. You analyze, you adjust, you evolve, you extract wisdom, you ask better questions, you get better answers. And most importantly, you keep going. You don't take failure personally. You don't make it your identity. You don't say, failed, therefore I am a failure. You say, failed, therefore I'm now wiser, stronger, dangerous than I was before. That is how winners think. That is how leaders rise, because they understand failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a part of it. It's not a detour. It's the path. If you look at anyone who's built anything legendary, whether in business, sports, art, leadership, you name it, what you'll see behind the scenes is failure. Over and over again. Rejection, criticism, loss, mistakes, miscalculations, broken plans. What separates them is not luck. It's not just grit. It's the ability to absorb the hit and keep moving. It's the refusal to let failure become a permanent place. They might visit failure, but they don't unpack there. They fall forward. They miss the mark, but they learn the angle for the next shot. They never stop adjusting. That's the key. Now, most people fail one time and they assign meaning to it. They say things like, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or it just wasn't meant to be. That language is poison. That thinking is the virus that kills dreams. Because once you start framing failure as final, you cut yourself off from the growth that's available. You must understand failure as a teacher. It teaches you things success never could. When you win, you celebrate. But when you fail, you reflect, you review, you reassess your process. That reflection is where real growth happens. But only if you choose it. That's the word, choose. Because failing forward is a choice. It's a decision to interpret the event in a way that fuels you instead of breaks you. It's the decision to say, that didn't work, but I'm not done. still have breath in my lungs, I still have a reason to get back up. And you do. Because if you're still here, there's still something in you that the world needs. There's still a voice, a gift, a mission that hasn't fully come to life yet. It won't happen if you let failure be the period at the end of your story. It's just a comma. It's just a pause. It's just the part where the character learns, stumbles, and sharpens their edge before rising even higher. Here's what's really wild. If you start viewing failure as a gift, everything changes. You stop running from it. You lean into risk. You expand your capacity. You stop playing not to lose, and you start playing to win. You stop worrying about other people's opinions and start focusing on progress. And progress only comes when you're willing to stretch, to step into the unknown, to take swings knowing you might miss. But that every swing makes you stronger, faster, sharper. You can't protect yourself from failure and grow at the same time. You have to pick one. If you want safety, you'll stay stuck. But if you want expansion, if you want power, if you want to become someone that your younger self would look at and say, wow, I didn't know we could become that, then you've got to be willing to fail and fail forward. So the next time you stumble, the next time you miss the mark, don't look down. Don't look back. Look straight ahead and say, I may have fallen, but I'm falling in the direction of my destiny. That's how legacies are built, not in perfection, but in persistence. Not by avoiding failure, by growing through it over and over again. And if you can embrace that there is no limit to what you can create, it's easy to move when things are going right. It's easy to show up when you feel good, when the motivation is flowing, the sun is shining, and everything seems to be lining up in your favor. But those moments are not where greatness is born. Champions are not forged in comfort. They're not defined by how they act when things are smooth, defined by what they choose to do when everything hurts, when everything in them wants to stop, when there's no applause, no progress, no reward in sight, only pressure, pain, and silence. That's when real character is revealed. That's where champions are carved, because in that moment, when you feel broken, when you're tired of trying, when the results aren't matching the effort, you have two choices. You can collapse into the pain and let it become your identity, or you can move anyway. You can act despite the fear. You can push despite the discomfort. And that's the moment that separates you from the rest. That moment defines whether you're going to talk about potential for the rest of your life or actually fulfill it. Everyone wants to win, but not everyone is willing to act when it's hard. That's the dividing line. Pain is not a punishment. Pain is a messenger. It's revealing where your growth is. It's showing you the part of yourself that hasn't been built yet, and most people run from it. They try to numb it, distract themselves from it, avoid it. The ones who rise, the ones who actually shift their life and make real progress, they lean into it. They let the pain refine them instead of define them. They use it. They squeeze it for wisdom. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this here to teach me? And then they act. That's the critical piece. Not just thinking, not just hoping, but acting even when the body says no, even when your emotions scream stop, even when your inner voice is filled with doubt. You don't wait to feel ready. You move because your mission demands it. That's the difference. Champions aren't addicted to comfort. They're addicted to growth. And growth requires discomfort. It requires doing what's necessary long after the initial inspiration is gone. It's the reps in the dark. It's the discipline when no one is watching. It's the self-leadership that kicks in when nothing else works. There are going to be days when everything inside you says, this isn't worth it. There will be seasons where it feels like you're putting in everything and getting nothing back. But those are the moments you need to remember. Reward doesn't go to the most talented. It goes to the most consistent. The ones who keep walking when their legs are shaking. The ones who choose progress over pride. The ones who step into the fire and refuse to back down. You don't grow by getting everything right. You grow by standing firm when it's hard and still choosing to move forward. The body will always seek safety. The mind will always seek comfort. But your spirit, it knows. It knows that the path to greatness runs straight through adversity, that nothing extraordinary has ever been built in the shallow waters of ease. You've got to be willing to go deep, to show up broken, to show up uncertain, to show up afraid and still execute, still rise, because acting when it hurts doesn't just build external results. It forges something internal, a version of you that knows they can be trusted, a version of you that doesn't negotiate with weakness. And once that's built, everything changes, because now you're not reacting to life, you're directing it. You're not hoping for confidence. You've earned it through consistent action in chaos. That's where certainty comes from, not from reading books or watching videos. It comes from knowing that when everything around you is falling apart, you still move forward with power and purpose. So if you're hurting, if you're struggling, if you're standing at the edge of giving up, hear this, the breakthrough is not somewhere far off. It's right on the other side of your next decision to act, to show life that you will not be shaken, that you're not here to visit your potential, you're here to live it. And that no matter how loud the pain gets, you will still rise, you will still build, you will still fight, because that's what champions do. They act when it hurts most, and that's why they win. Victory isn't always what you think it is. We've been conditioned to chase the big win, the spotlight moment, the celebration, the applause. associate victory with trophies, with recognition, with the final destination where everyone claps and everything feels perfect. But if that's the only way you define winning, you'll spend most of your life feeling like you're losing. Because the truth is, those moments are rare. And if you're only chasing the peak, you'll miss all the power that's being built in the climb. Real victory is not a finish line, it's a process. It's progress. It's showing up again and again and again, even when the reward isn't immediate, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, even when no one sees you. The most powerful people you'll ever meet, the ones who have mastered their craft, built something meaningful and impacted lives. They didn't wait for the win to feel successful. They measured their life by how much they grew, by how much they gave, by how often they chose to rise, not because they had to, because they made it a standard. Progress became their proof. And that shift in perspective is what unlocked everything. Because once you stop needing the world to validate you and you start tracking your own progress, you start living in power. You've got to stop treating progress like it's not enough. Every rep, every hard conversation, every new habit, every single moment where you chose growth over comfort, that is a win. That is momentum. But most people don't see it that way. So they quit too early. They say, I'm not there yet, and use that as a reason to stop. But you've got to flip that. I'm not there yet should be your reason to continue. Because every day you take another step, you are closer. You are better. You are stronger. And that version of you that you're working toward, that version is being built right now in the choices no one else is celebrating. You want to change your life. Redefine what winning means to you. Stop waiting until the bank account looks a certain way, until the scale says a certain number, until the business hits the perfect goal. All of those are great, but they're temporary. They can be taken, they can fluctuate, they can disappear. But progress, that's yours forever. What you become in the process can never be taken away from you. You've earned it with sweat discipline and unbreakable consistency. And here's something most people miss. When you learn to celebrate progress, you fuel yourself. You create emotional momentum. You stop beating yourself up for what you're not and start reinforcing who you are becoming. And that's where confidence comes from. Confidence doesn't come from achieving. It comes from becoming. It comes from looking yourself in the mirror and knowing you did the hard thing today, that even when you wanted to quit, you stayed in the fight. Even when no one was clapping, you kept clapping for yourself. That's real power. That's real identity. That's the kind of self-respect no one can hand to you. You've got to build it brick by brick through daily progress. And yes, there will be times when the world doesn't understand what you're doing. Look at your grind and not see the payoff. They'll question why you keep pushing, but they're not measuring what you're measuring. They're not living your vision. You are. And when you learn to track and trust your progress, you become unstoppable because you no longer need motivation from outside. You've got purpose and proof inside. You're not chasing the high of one big moment. You're chasing the high of becoming someone better every day. That's a game you can win every single day. So stop asking, did I win today? Ask instead, did I grow? Did I move forward? Did I stay true to the path I promised myself I would follow? Because if the answer is yes, you're winning. If the answer is yes, you are becoming. And if you're becoming, then the bigger wins, the money, the success, the freedom, they're not a matter of if, they're just a matter of when. None of that matters if you don't first honor your progress. Because your progress is proof that you're alive, that you're still in the game, that you haven't given up on your own story. That's what this is really about, not chasing some distant version of success, but building a daily rhythm of rising, a daily habit of honoring your evolution. Because when progress becomes your victory, you never stop winning.